Greetings, Planeswalkers. Tyler here.
And Andrew.
And today, we're going to be doing our first episode of a new series, Commander Countdowns, a semi-casual Top X list show that has us both looking at our favorite members of various card categories. Today, we'll be looking at our top 5 favorite commanders in black.
That's right. We'll be going down the list and going into some smaller details behind why we either like these cards or why we want to play them. And before anyone gets all up in arms in the comments, this first video is purely subjective.
Exactly. These are our personal favorites. Though, feel free to tell us yours below. We can't wait to see. Anyway, without further ado, and coming in at number 5 for me is Erebos, God of the Dead. For 3 and a black, you get a 5/7 legendary enchantment creature God. He's got 5 power and 7 toughness. And the ability, if your devotion to black is less than 5, he's not a creature. He just gets to sit there as an enchantment. He also has the static ability of your opponents can't gain life. On top of both of those, he has the activated ability of 1 and a black, pay 2 life, draw a card. I like him for the same reason I like all of the Theros gods. Very straightforward, very simple to play, very easy design that showcases what the color wants to do. There's numerous ways to build around him to kind of show off the way that black wants to play, either by resource denial in the case of life gain for your opponents, or paying your own life in order to gain more resources than your opponent, or even just building black however you want. Erebos isn't an incredibly restrictive commander. He's very new player friendly for people that just kind of want to dip their toes into the color. By turning himself on and on from being a creature and being just a pure enchantment, he doesn't punish you for really forgetting that you have a commander on the field.
My 5th favorite black commander is Ayara, First of Lochthwain. It costs black for a 2/3 elf noble, and when she or another black creature enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. And she has the ability tap to sacrifice another black creature and draw a card. The way I would run this deck is by playing a lot of black creatures to get her enter the battlefield trigger multiple times, as often as you can. I want to drain my opponents to death, and I want to sacrifice my creatures and get value off of them. So I want to run a lot of creatures that do something when they die, as well as other cards that I can sacrifice those creatures to. I'm a red-blue player, and I want to squeeze as much value out of my black decks as humanly possible. My 4th favorite black commander is God Eternal Bontu. She costs 3 black for a 5/6 zombie god with menace. When she enters, sacrifice any number of other permanents and draw that many cards. And when she dies, you may put her back into your library 3rd from the top. It's a similar style of deck to Ayara, but I prefer it over Ayara because you can sacrifice any number of permanents just when Bontu enters the battlefield. So I still want to play a lot of black creatures, so I have lots of fodder for Bontu to eat when she enters, and I like to get lots of value out of these cards. Like I said, I'm a value player, so I get death triggers off of some of these cards, I get death triggers off of Bontu's ability, every sacrifice card replaces itself when I draw these cards, and I really like that.
Coming in at my number 4 is, well, Bontu again, but back when she was a bit more lively. Bontu the Glorified is 2 and a black for a 4/6 indestructible god with menace. She cannot attack or block unless a creature you control died this turn, and for 1 and a black and sacrifice another creature, you get to scry 1. Each opponent also loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life. I like her because she plays a lot similarly to a more complicated Erebos. She has a little bit more of a presence on the battlefield besides just being an enchantment that sometimes steps down to fight and being able to easily fight on her own, and nothing, and I repeat, nothing feels better than dropping board wipe after board wipe and watching this giant indestructible gator continue to walk the battlefield. And that is why she is my number 4. Worming his way into number 3 on my list is Maronar, the 3 black, 2/3 rat rogue from Kamigawa. He gives all other rats fear, meaning that they can only be blocked by black creatures or artifact creatures, and has the ability tap, sacrifice a rat, make X11 rat creature tokens, where X is the number of rats you currently control. He breeds more than bunnies do. But what's even better is that he pairs so nicely with Relentless Rats and Thrumming Stone. Thrumming Stone is generally useless in Commander because of its reliance on cards that have the same name. But with a card like Relentless Rat, led by Maronar, you can quickly turn 1 or 2 little ratty boys into an army that will tear everything to bits.
My number 3 slot is Liliana, Heretical Healer. She is a 2/3 human cleric that costs 1 black, and she has lifelink. When another non-token creature you control dies, exile Liliana, Heretical Healer, then return her to the battlefield transformed under her owner's control. If you do, put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield. And when she flips into Liliana, Defiant Necromancer. She has 3 loyalty, and her abilities are +2, each player discards a card, -X, return target non-legendary creature card with converted mana cost X from your graveyard to the battlefield, and -8, you get an emblem with, whenever a creature dies, return it to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of the next end step. There are a few reasons why I like this creature. I like her because she flips into a planeswalker, and I like her because you get to steal your opponent's creatures from their graveyards. So I would generally run a lot of different Liliana planeswalkers in this deck, as well as cards that force my opponents to sacrifice their creatures. I want them to dump as many creatures as possible into their graveyard, so I can just steal them with Liliana. My number 2 pick is Skitterax, the Blight Dragon. Skitterax is a 4/4 legendary creature dragon skeleton that costs 3 black and has flying and infect. Infect says, this creature deals damage to creatures in the form of -1/-1 counters and to players in the form of poison counters. Skitterax also has pay a black. Skitterax gains haste until end of turn, and you may pay black to regenerate him. I like this commander a lot for the gimmick of infect. I want to suit this commander up with all the equipment that I possibly can to make him unblockable and make him more powerful so that he can just hit players for infect damage and kill them super early. At the end of the day, yes, I'm that monster.
And coming in at number 2 for me is the big old froggy boy who's come to Bargle. It's Yargle, Glutton of Urborg. Yargle is a 4 and a black vanilla 9/3 frog spirit. His name is basically the biggest selling point because past that, he's got nothing. He's got the biggest teeth and the littlest butt. He's simple, he's straightforward. I'm seduced easily by big numbers. He does battle cruiser magic in the way that probably no one intended. But at the end of the day, do I need to remind you? His name is Yargle. And finally, coming in at number 1 on my list, Geth, Lord of the Vault, aka Captain Mick Only Ahead. MODOK's much smaller and depressing older brother here is a 5/5 zombie that casts for 4 black and has Intimidate, which means that, kind of like Fear, he can only be blocked by creatures that share a color with him rather than just black outright, and artifact creatures because they lack a soul and thus the ability to feel fear. Captain Cranium also has pay X and a black. Put target artifact or creature card with CMC X from an opponent's graveyard onto the battlefield tapped under your control. He also then kind of dumpsters their library for whatever you paid into X, thus fueling his ability for later. Rotting Chrome Dome over here is probably the leader of one of my absolute favorite tribes in the entirety of Magic, zombies, as well as things that lack a body and are just a head. Has the ability to try and fill the void that not having a body gives him by taking stuff from your opponent's graveyard, but nothing will ever fill the empty hole in his heart, provided he had a heart, which he can't, because, as I've stated before, he's just a head, which is also quite a winning point for me. On a more serious note, though, he works on both a milling and a reanimator strategy, both things I really love to do to my opponent's decks.
My number 1 pick is Kirik, son of Yawgmoth, and yes, it's Kirik, not Crick. He costs 4 Phyrexian black, Phyrexian black, Phyrexian black for a 2/2 horror minion with lifelink. All black mana and costs become Phyrexian mana for you, which means you can pay 2 life instead of a black. When you cast a black spell, you put a +1/+1 counter on Kirik. This is just a really efficient commander, and I really like that. Because like I said, value player. So here you get to cast a lot of your spells for just life, including life gain spells and life drain spells, which is really fun. Because you just you're basically casting these spells for free. You pay less life into them than you're getting back. You drain your opponents, you play lots of creatures. It's a good time. I like Kirik.
And there we have it. Our personal top 5s for our favorite mono-black commanders to play. What are your favorites? Did you like our choices? Did you hate some of our choices? Did you wish that I didn't use weird head jokes for every single time that I mentioned Geth? Leave all of those down in the comments. And remember, subscribe, comment, hit that little notification bell, and keep casting. Later, Planeswalkers.